Am I wrong to have serious reservations about whether this president can be believed?
Well, I write this pretty extensively in the book, Chris, that this is the biggest problem with having family in official positions in the White House because it's much harder to be objective. It's much harder to handle it that way. So what does he do in this instance? At least as reported by the New York Times tonight. Jared wants that top secret security clearance. They're upset about the fact that John Kelly took it away from them based upon objections from both the FBI and the CIA. And then all of a sudden, Jared gets it. And we now find out from this report that both John Kelly and Don McGahn, the White House counsel, wrote contemporaneous memos saying that they were overruled by the president. They were concerned about this decision. Now, I can tell you something. As having been a governor, I never had a staff member write a contemporaneous memo about one of my decisions.
They don't do that on a whim.
They just don't.
They do it to cover themselves in a situation that they're worried about exposure on. Fair point?
Exactly right.
Both of them did this.
Well, and the bad part, too, is that Ivanka went on ABC and said directly that her father had nothing to do with her clearance or her husband's clearance.
No hedging, straight-faced,
no.
right to camera.
And by the way, there were two comments that are in response today. One that came from the White House, where the White House said, we don't comment on security clearances.
Yeah, since when?
And second one was from Abby Lowell.
Yes.
Who's Jared Kushner's lawyer, and probably still is. And he said, essentially, we are committing to what we were told at the time we communicated that to all of you. Boiled down, he's saying to them, this is what I was told at the time, and I communicated it to you, but he wouldn't warranty it any further. Those are things that both should be very disturbing to people. And again, Chris, it goes back to the familial relationship. It goes back to the idea that for any other staff member, I think the president would have a much easier time of saying, listen, no, I'm not getting involved.
Not Rob Porter.
Oh, but Porter was different. There's no evidence at this point that he overruled for Porter's security clearance.
He was playing with it. But I hear you about going back to family, and that creates
and I think it's a real problem.
I think it's a real problem, but I think it is also a step sideways from the actual problem. The actual problem is this president has no problem lying to the American people about things he thinks he needs to. Fair point?
Well, I think that what he's done at times, which has been unfortunate, is, in my view, lie about things that he hasn't needed to lie about. That's worse in many respects, whether it's the Stormy Daniels payment or whether it's this instance. It doesn't serve him well, and it doesn't serve the country well. And, I understand that both of those things were very personal matters. One involved his son-in-law and what his son-in-law wanted. Another one involved an alleged relationship with a woman outside of his marriage. So understand, and we saw in the Clinton administration, there was problems with veracity on issues that were very
like this.
Well, on issues that were very personal, Chris. And okay, so I understand that, but I think that it doesn't serve. There's no way to defend, and I'm not going to, the New York Times story tonight, assuming it's true, and I have to assume it's true because the White House didn't deny it.
Look,
and nor did Jared's lawyer.
The memos, they know that there's paperwork there, and they know if they lie, it's going to be exposed on top of this lie.
You have to believe that's true.
But look, right now we're talking about this. If you stop talking, we will hear silence. That is the echo of the nothing coming from everybody in leadership of your party. They have said nothing about this. They sat in that hearing yesterday, beating Cohen over the head with his own lack of credibility. Fine. But Cohen lied about all the same things that the president did. And they never said anything to defend him. And they have never stood up to his lying. How can they keep their integrity?
Listen, I didn't think that it was a very good display yesterday. I watched all of the hearings.
You're being too politic about
this.
I'm
not. No, I wouldn't have done it that way. And what I said was, I think one or two people should have gone after Michael Cohen on his credibility. But let's face it, we know he's a liar. We know he's a cheat. We know he's a thief. He's pled guilty to those things.
How do any of those things not apply to the President of the United States?
Here's the difference. The difference, Chris, is Cohen has admitted them in a court of law, under oath, and pled guilty.
But that's just the proof part, Governor.
But that's the important part, Chris. I mean,
no, it isn't. Because,
it is.
But
we
know
can't do that.
I can prove it right now that the president has done those same things.
But Chris, we have a presumption of innocence in this country regarding people. You respect that. I respect
Yes.
it. And so my point is Michael Cohen has blown through that.
Yes.
He's admitted it.
Yes.
My point on the congressional hearings was there were a couple ways to defend the president yesterday on the substance of what Cohen said. No one did it.
No one.
No
Why?
one did it. I don't know. I will tell you, it was pretty easy to me. I was on another network commenting on this.
ABC, it's okay.
Yes.
It's my old home, too.
Right?
Very proud of that
All right.
place.
So, I was on there commenting. I said there were two things yesterday that came out from Cohen that I think are helpful to the president. The first one is that he said there was not one reason for the Stormy Daniels payment, but two.
Mm-hmm.
And that the second reason, beside a campaign, was that the president didn't want Melania to know, and that, in fact, he added to that tapestry by saying that he, in fact, lied to the First Lady about what the purpose of that payment was.
Although the precedent from the case that the only one they tried, but where the guy got acquitted the last time that we saw this with John Edwards, is that doesn't have to be the only reason. It could be one of the reasons.
Right.
So he could still have exposure.
But I think if you're a Republican advocating for the president, what you say is the Southern District of New York or anybody else is not going to bring that kind of prosecution against the president after he leaves office.
True.
Because your best witness says there's two alternatives.
It's a mixed bag.
The defendant will say there's none.
And Cohen said, I don't know if he knew what the emails were that Roger Stone told him about.
Right.
I don't know that he knew that the meeting that his son took was with Russians. I don't have any proof of collusion. And I know he would never hurt his wife.
Right.
If Cohen were there just to blow up the president, he wouldn't have said any of those things.
I thought those
but
were...
he got no quarter from the right.
I thought those were moments of credibility for Michael. And that doesn't change, in essence, who he has been.
But here's what I don't get.
But when we just finish this one point, Chris, is that nobody in the Republican Party was making those statements. So my point to you is, if they're as much a slave of the president as you made out in your comments,
Do you feel differently?
well, they either
Help me.
I think if you were really doing that, you'd be more aggressive on offensive defense. But instead,
Governor, please.
all you're doing is going after the guy who's already been established to be a liar. I got bored after three of those sets of questions.
But how do you ignore another liar who happens to be president? Look, I'll give you the legal difference. I'll never go law for law in terms of you. Your mind is way too subtle and you understand it way too well. What I'm saying is this. You're right, he admitted it. But the other man is the president of the United States, and he lied about the same things. Told you he doesn't know who Felix Sater is. Told you he didn't know what the hush money payments were. He's lying to your face. Your party is supposed to stand up against this stuff. You railed against Clinton for it. You went after Obama when he said things that weren't true. This president lies at a rate that is exhausting, and nobody says a damn word.
I don't want to get too off the track here.
That is the track.
Hold on. Well, then I'm going to take it on a bit of a different track, but a parallel one, okay? Democrats weren't saying anything about Bill Clinton in 98, 99, nor did they stand up to do anything at all to undercut the president. The problem is that since the Clinton years, and it's gone on since the Clinton years, we have become so partisan, so blindly partisan in the national congressional scene and at the White House that nobody's willing to say anything against their party, even when they know it's wrong. Everybody knew that what President Clinton did for lying under oath was wrong, right? Everybody knew it. Democrats didn't say anything about it. You're criticizing the Republicans for the very same thing. It's a valid criticism. But my point to you is, it's not just a Republican problem. It is a political problem in our country
Look,
when we're not willing to speak the truth.
The reason why this is my theory, the reason why Governor Christie didn't punch through in the primary was because you were still, even though renegade in your own right, even though outspoken in your own right, different, the disaffection, the hatred for the toxic political culture gave birth to somebody who would be seen as a virus to the same. Trump wasn't seen as an antidote. He was seen as a virus. You were a governor. You're part of the machine. Sure, you were an outlier, and you had your fights with the media and everybody else. But that's how he got in, because people expect politicians to lie. And they expect no integrity. But what I'm getting at, Governor, is where does it stop?
Well,
where does it stop with that? We've never seen lying like this.
I hope that what happens here now is that over the course of the next number of years, whether it's 2 or whether it's 6, that the country gets exhausted from all of this.
And then what happens?
And then I think the pendulum swings back.
To what?
Well, listen, I think that you rightly put, and I'll tell a quick anecdote from the book. My wife went door to door in New Hampshire, and when she introduced herself to someone, said, I'm Governor Christie's wife. She says, oh gosh, we love the governor. He's so smart and authentic and blunt and direct. I mean, we're voting for Trump, but we love your husband. And my wife said, well, if you love Chris, why are you voting for Trump? She goes, oh, honey, we don't need another politician. Okay, so your point, anecdotally and in the election results, is absolutely right. I think the country needs to understand. I think Hillary had the same problem. I think the country needs to understand that we need to have a system again where people are willing to talk to each other. I will tell you, though, the biggest complaint I heard in New Hampshire when I was running for president was that I was nice to Barack Obama during Hurricane Sandy. The single biggest complaint I heard from Republican primary voters, that they despised the president so much that their view was that I should have somehow, given him the Heisman when he came to look at the 365,000 homes that were destroyed in my state. So what I'm telling you is that this feeling, this toxic feeling, has, in my view, been going on ever since the Clinton impeachment. And Ross Perot was a bit of the beginning of that,
I'll
and
give it to
move
you.
forward.
I'll give you the evolution.